Hello, everyone. This is Stanley back for Wake Up and Get Wellthy. I have not been here in quite a while and apologize for my voice. I don't have much of a voice. And the good thing is that you won't be hearing a ton from me today. You'll be mostly hearing from Dr. Winter, who's going to be joining us from Baylor Scott and White Health. We are really excited to have him back for probably the fourth time I think he's been on this show. We're going to talk about COVID year 2. I see a bunch of people joining. Hi, Ernesto. It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Paul. I think that's Doris Klein. Good to see you guys. I'm so sorry about my voice. I woke up this morning without a voice. I feel totally fine, but I don't have much of a voice. This is not what I sound like in general now, 2 years later, I promise. So we are going to wait for Dr. Winter to call in. He should be here in about a minute. But while we are waiting, just feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat. We're going to talk about, again, COVID year 2 and where we are in the pandemic right now in this moment. And what we can expect for the future, and also lessons learned from the past. So please let us know if you have any questions. Oh, hi, Daniel. He's sitting right there. So hello. So I'm so glad to see everyone. Well, not really see everyone, but be here with you all. Again, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. And once Dr. Winter hops on, I will not do much of the talking because of this. But yeah, please let me know if you have any questions about COVID year 2. Put them in the chat. Or say hello, or any other questions that you have about wellness in the meantime. And Dr. Winter should be here in just a moment. I am so happy to be back here. It's been a wild 2 years. Been on and off for Wake Up and Get Wellthy, but I'm so excited to be restarting this and having, more conversations about wellness and, all the questions that you might have about, what's going on with the pandemic, with wellness trends. There is Baylor. So it looks like I can him, and he should be on here in 1 second. Let's see. Invite. Okay. Let's see if he'll join. Okay. Dr. Winter, you will need to press accept from the invitation.
Hey there.
There he is. Hello.
Good morning.
The man himself. How are you?
Doing well. How are things?
I am doing well. I don't have much of a voice, Dr. Winter, so I'm so sorry. But, maybe this is a good point to talk about the question later down the line. How do you know if this is just no voice or COVID, right?
It's a good question. And sometimes we have trouble telling ourselves. If in doubt, go get.
Yep. If in doubt, go get a test. Yep. So true. So true. And I guess, monitor symptoms too. So, I don't have a fever. I don't have any other symptoms, except I woke up this morning without much of a voice. The one day that I really need to have one.
Yeah, probably one of those viral things going around right now. Usually with COVID, it's more with fatigue. You can have a sore throat, head congestion, like a common cold, but not just horse. But
right.
If out, you can go get a test. That's easy to do.
Yep, get a test, and that's the truth, right? Well, thank you so much for being here, Dr. Winter. Most of our viewers probably know you by now. This is year 2, and at this point, I'm wondering if we should just assume that we're going to meet here annually to talk about COVID. But let's just dive in to year 2 and talk about, what is the current state? Where are we right now in the pandemic?
Well, thankfully, the pandemic in America is on the decline. It's been going steadily down for about a month now. There's still a few pockets out there, but for most of us, it's pretty much going away. I actually diagnosed 2 people just this morning, so I could have said for the last 3 cases, but I had 2. So still some out there. They actually got theirs out in the Bahamas, so I don't know what they were doing out there. But most of the way right now. Now that's the good news, and that's what we see with the third surge. We go up and then come down with some regularity. So this is somewhat predicted. Now what's going to happen next is the big question, because around the world, COVID is surging. In Hong Kong, in the last 3 weeks, they've had more deaths in the last 2 years from COVID. China hadn't had deaths in a long time. They're having deaths now. We see COVID increasing. I think, if I remember these correctly, it's in Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Germany, New Zealand,
UK.
and
Yep.
UK going up. Hard to get that information out reliably. But yeah, it's going on around all over the world. So it's likely to come back. Now, that's a good question. And we've got experts who are saying probably later this spring. We have other experts saying, oh, we learned about the coronavirus and it spreads more rapidly in cold, dry climates, not a lot of sun. Warm, hot climates, sunlight, it tends to go away, so it could be seasonal, meaning it'll come back in the fall. We don't really know right now.
Yeah. So, and are we talking about the BA2 variant? Is that the one that we're kind of reading about that's in Hong Kong, UK, those areas?
Yeah, it's the new stealth Omicron. It's actually Omicron with about 30 different mutations from the original Omicron, but it looks like it's more contagious. It's in America. I can tell you that a month ago it was like less than 10%, up to 25% this week, 40% up in New York, New Jersey, spreading rapidly here. What we know about this, it is brand new, so we need to, we could change your mind. We may learn something else. It looks like clearly more contagious. That's why beating the original out in the marketplace, it's more contagious, but so far it does not look like causing more serious illness, deadly. Hopefully that will stay true. But right now it's the new variant and it's spreading the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been reading a lot about that, and it's interesting because I did not include that really in our questions, right? When we wrote these questions a couple of weeks ago. And so things have changed so rapidly. Can you talk to us about why it's so difficult to predict, what things will look like even tomorrow or next week? When we plan for these types of events, when we're going to actually talk about COVID, why is it difficult to predict?
Well, particularly with the virus now, the coronavirus, it's brand new to the human, a little over 2 years now. What it's going to do is unpredictable. This virus before, and it's changing. It keeps mutating. Now, we were kind of used to it with influenza. Every year we get an influenza vaccine because the virus keeps changing. This one is going to be similar, change with some regularity. Vaccines still do work for Omicron and the stealth virus, not as well as Delta, but they still do pretty darn well there. The doctors will come up with a new vaccine when we need one, but the virus keeps changing. We change what we declare it to do next. We're learning from this virus week by week, if not month by month.
Right. So, and what about the booster? Is that something we're going to need to get, every couple or every, 6 months? Are we learning something from this new variant as far as when we're going to need to get another booster?
We are, and I can tell you 6 weeks ago, I would tell you that you need a booster and a second booster because the antibodies go down significantly. However, the past couple of weeks, there's been now 4 studies that say, well, the antibodies we measure, but there are other antibodies that last longer. There are T cell antibodies that last much longer, maybe years, many years, actually, saying right now. We're still learning about that. We don't really know. And the current advice for boosters is if you're compromised, frail, definitely get a booster and a second booster in months. For the rest of us, should you get a second booster? Don't know yet. It wouldn't hurt to get one. You want to get one, but I'm not sure we right now. We need one every fall. They combine it with flu vaccine. We'll see. Right now, we don't have the answer to all those.
Yeah. So I guess, moral of the story, we have to kind of keep up with everything that's going on day by day, it sounds like.
We learn something every day. It keeps changing and teaching us new things. The good news is most people today causes a mild illness. I've seen a lot of folks in the last probably 50 or 60. All my patients have been vaccinated. They'll have mild illnesses. A mild illness is head congestion, sore fatigue for 3 to 4 or 5 days. Then they're well. So that's what I haven't had anybody in the hospital now in months. Knock on wood here, but pretty fortunate. In fact, in the hospital with COVID now, those are folks typically that really, most of them actually are unvaccinated.
Yeah. So we did have a question that came through in the chat. Timothy asked, I don't really understand this question, but we can kind of look at it. Why not the mental health department anymore? But that's a good topic to talk about, that I wanted to kind of switch gears and talk about, the mental health component of COVID, specifically for hospital staff. You work, at a big hospital system. How are the staff holding up right now? Given that, we are likely to see this, surge in cases with this new variant, and they've been through already so many surges. How is everyone holding up?
Well, it's been a tough couple of years, no question about that. The first year in particular, that was tough. We all geared up and supported each other. And I'll tell you, last spring, when the virus started to die down, we all felt this relief, and we were so relaxed and felt really good. Now, by that time, many folks, in fact, most older folks, with Omicron, though, if you were and you got sick, and the average age, Brett, the average age of hospitalized patients, 42 years of age. Lots of young folks, and it was really tough for the staff like that too. You see these young, they're scared to death. Their administrators are telling their family, "Please, I didn't get one." That was kind of a wake up for a lot back then. We've been doing a lot of work with the staff throughout this years, and particularly the last months. We've got counselors that we send out when we need. We encourage people to talk among themselves. Make sure everybody's doing okay. Are you really doing okay? Don't take vacation. Take time off. Don't be a hero and yourself into mental health. Worry about that. So, still an issue. This is a relief right now with less, but I worry about that one. It's hard to see these people, particularly people very, very sick in the ICU.
Yeah, I'm sure. So is there any advice you can give us to, best care for those people who are caring for others?
Well, understand this virus is extremely contagious. Omicron stealth, the new one, is even more contagious than the original, more contagious than Delta, pretty darn easily. Again, if you're young and healthy, you probably do fine. But otherwise, you can get this and spread it. We need to make a point here that the vaccines work very well to prevent severe illness. They don't prevent transmissions. This virus, when it gets in your throat or your nose, first couple of days you have minimal symptoms, but you then and not even know. Like even folks who know spread it. So that's the problem. Now, it gets down to doing this all the time. That just doesn't work for most people. People in Texas that don't know what to do. I tell people when they say, "Should we make it?" Not in Texas. That doesn't work very well. But we should be careful. And I think if you're young, you can hang out with young and healthy. If you've got some frail parents or relatives or friends that are compromised, be careful being around them. Spread it to them. You might want to wear your mask and keeping those folks isolated, because it does really harm the people most vulnerable.
Yeah. So, along those same lines of, how contagious this new variant is it fact or fiction that we can get reinfected? So if I had, for example, COVID, I had Omicron in January, can I get reinfected now?
Well, I'll tell you, the folks that got Delta back a year ago, does not protect very well, but Omicron does protect against Omicron variant. Then you have, and again, the vaccine protects against Omicron. In fact, the folks who've had Omicron and didn't get a vaccine or get a vaccine Omicron, they have the best antibody levels of anybody. So yeah, you can get it a second time if you are otherwise healthy.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone else is having a little trouble hearing, but sometimes I'm kind of getting every other word from you, but hopefully that's just on my end. But let's talk about too. Okay, so possible to get reinfected, right? What is recovery looking like now for people? You said that, for the vaccinated, this new variant and Omicron tend to not have as severe symptoms. So what is recovery looking like now?
Well, it's pretty well for most. You see a small percentage of folks get long COVID stuff. We don't know if people get that and some don't. It tends to be young. Long COVID typically means fatigue, maybe a sore throat, a little brain fog. You just feel. I've seen patients that are going weeks and even months with. Actually got a rehab program at Baylor that helps you get over that. Got some plans to take care of those people when they get that. So if you're really fatigued weeks after you've had COVID, that's you might want to do that. Most folks will get well pretty quickly, 3 to 5 days, and they're back doing whatever they do.
Yeah. So, for example, I read an article in the New York Times about the loss of gray matter and tissue damage to the brain. Is that a real thing? Like, is COVID brain a real thing that people are experiencing as part of recovery?
But it's scary to read about that. I read that also. That he did. They took people who'd had a brain scan for a reason, who then said, let's get another brain scan. We'll compare the two. And they, not everyone, but several folks there, parts of the brain that suggested shrinkage was 2 to 0.3%. It did some memory tests, some cognitive tests, but also one study came out. People have that. We don't know if that has any long implications. It's one to one. I think the bottom line with that is don't get COVID if you can avoid it, because you might get some. How much? How often? You don't know the answer to that right now.
Yeah. So as I think about my next question, we do have someone saying that they're also only hearing like every other word. It's cutting out. I don't know if you're able to change position or something so we can get a little bit better of internet connection, but if not, that's okay. But I've heard kind of the I've heard kind of the let's test that and see how that works. But talking about let's try not to get COVID, right? I've heard the theory from people of like, I just want to get it and get it over with. And so I get the antibodies. But it sounds like you're saying like, hey, let's try to avoid it at all costs, correct?
I don't recommend just getting it because we don't know. I mean, holding over with, that's one thing, but it's been on a little over 2 years. We have implications, cause long-term damage. We don't know that. They not get it over with because who knows what's going to happen. So try to avoid this virus. It's not a good one to get.
Yeah. I'm going to see if anyone else has questions in the chat. So if you do have a question for Dr. Winter, please put them in the chat and I will ask him with whatever voice I have left to ask him. But Dr. Winter, what is kind of a key summary of what you can leave us with as far as, where we are now and what we can expect for the future in the next, couple of months for where we are right now?
Yeah, let me emphasize that what we know about this continues to change. And so what we said a year ago, we may change your mind about that. There's always a work in progress. And when we have a new discovery, we want to confirm that. sure that really any study or journal has to be confidence rates statistics that means 5 can be wrong. So we need to be careful criticizing medicine. We used to 2 months ago. Now you change data to tell us that. In fact, 2 years ago, they asked somebody, "Are masks important?" And the answer they said, "Well, we don't know for sure." Even that masks do, and there's no question in my mind now they do. In fact, very few common, no influenza, and less folks that wore masks. But if science came out and said definitely about transmission, then we're say yes, you must. Others saying they are. So science keeps changing, and so when we do that, a new study can find about that. Understand this is brand new. It's playing around again. It's like I think we'll see COVID for years. Hopefully, it becomes something we deal with, like we deal with influenza, like we deal with the. We can handle it better. We can learn who needs the mask and distance. Well, who does? Who needs even a first? Not everyone may need that. Young children really a big debate, and we don't actually. We know that children can COVID. We can spread it to parents and people around them. Is that a mode of transmission? Possibly. We'll find all these answers. But right, understand that when you find saying that definitely with COVID, you need to be sure that they said that 2 months ago. Put your hat on that.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on children and the vaccination, assuming that, the recommendation has to been to get children vaccinated? Is that still the case now?
Well, right now, 5 have not, but they're studying. If children, I think it's if the parents are frail, or compromised condition, that includes people with diabetes, liver disease, kidney, folks are more prone to bad. Does every young one? I don't know the answer. I think we're going to find out until time, and we'll see. Next year, we do everyone or just adult. Time will tell. We can't. We're going to future's not here.
Yeah. So we're continuing to learn. We will always continue to learn. But it sounds like from what you're saying, one of the main takeaways is we need to continue protecting the vulnerable and the frail. And we just need to continue to monitor, what's going on with the variants and the science. So thank you so much. We don't have any questions that I see right now, but we'll give everyone just a minute to see if any questions come in. And Dr. Winter, we just so appreciate you coming on here the past couple of years to just keep us informed about the pandemic and what's going on with COVID. Again, like I said at the beginning, we probably will be meeting here annually, but it gives me hope that our conversations have changed quite a bit over the past 2 years, from less panic to more knowledge and ways to protect ourselves. So that's really, that's really a inspiring thing to take for me, that, our conversations have changed since we first talked 2 years ago.
Yeah, and Brett, transmission next year. Give me some notice out JCC. Person that could choose here right now with my phone, but I'd enjoy coming out and doing a live presentation.
We would love to have you here. And we do have a question that came in about a BSW policy that you may or may not know, but they asked that their primary care physician would not let them come into her office to be seen because they had a fever. Is that the policy right now for PCPs?
What most physicians are doing, if you may have COVID, we would like you not to come into the office. What we do for those folks, actually, my office, have them drive on the parking lot, swabs them, or we have urgent care. So we do want to take care of them, but we don't want them to come in the office shut down the office. That'd be a big problem. So
Right.
yeah, screen all our patients. We have a sort of symptoms. We'd like you to get screened, not to come in. And by doing that, in our office, most offices later, we've had no case transmitted any reason for that. Again, it's highly, you have it around people, drop your mask, spread it. That's the reason for that. I think it makes
Yeah.
sense.
That makes sense, but it sounds like you all have some, backup options to just keep people healthy. Great.
You have a cold, you have COVID, and you can stay home for 5 You don't have to get a test. I mean, usually the antibiotics well, and then you get back to circulation. Now, if you're frail, you kind of underlying, well, I probably want to know if you have that. Young and healthy folks, home for 5 days, and that works. Well, I don't want to get a test. I'll just, we call them every day, and if by day 6 they go back to what they were doing.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much. Those are all the questions that I've seen come through. Thank you so much, Dr. Winter. Hopefully our next conversation, I will have a full voice again. But thank you so much for coming on here. We will post this video for people to access in the future. And as always, people can write in with questions on Instagram or contact us if they have any questions. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Stay healthy.
I sure will. Thank you, Dr. Winter.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.